If you're like most personal trainers, you probably think you need to get better at selling. You don't. Because right now, people are inquiring, walking into your gym, booking a consultation, and then not signing up. They say, I'll think about it. And then you never hear from them again. It's not that they weren't interested, it's that nothing's moving them to a decision. You've probably had this happen. You sit down with someone in a consultation, you have a good chat, they seem engaged, they're asking questions, and in the moment it feels like it's going well. Then, right at the end, they say, sounds good, I'll think about it. I used to think that that just meant they needed a little bit more time, but when I eventually realised was this: engagement feels like progress, but it isn't the same as decision. They're talking, they're interested, they seem on board, but they still haven't made their mind up. And that's the bit most trainers misread. And this is where most of us get it wrong. We think the issue is the consultation, or that we need to get better at selling. But the real problem starts before that. Because most of us are bringing people into a consultation who are still unsure. They're still thinking, still comparing, and then expecting the consultation to do all the work. That's why it doesn't convert into new clients. Most people don't decide when they sit down with you. They've already been thinking about this before that. They've seen your content, they've checked your page, they've watched what you do. And during that time, they're deciding whether you're the person they trust to help them. So by the time they get to a consultation, one of two things is true. They're almost ready, they just need a bit of clarity before they start, or they're still unsure, still figuring things out, still comparing you to somebody else. And those are completely different conversations. And this is where things changed for me. For a long time, I thought I just needed to get better at selling. Better conversations, better explanations, better closes. But the biggest shift I made had nothing to do with the consultation. It was everything that happened before that. I stopped posting about my services, I stopped trying to sell what I did, and instead I focused on being useful. I came across an acronym called EDDY. I think it was Ralph Burns on the Perpetual Traffic podcast. Educate, demonstrate, inform, entertain. Now, I'm not much of an entertainer, but I can do the other three very well. So I started creating content that showed people how to do things properly, answered the questions they already had, and gave them something they could actually use. And what that did was it built trust before they ever spoke to me. So by the time somebody came in for a consultation, they weren't trying to decide if it was right for them. They already trusted me. And most of the time, they'd already made the decision to work with me. So when you look at it like that, the role of the consultation is completely different. It's not there to convince someone. It's not there to sell your services. It's there to understand what's actually going on, collect the right information, and guide what happens next. Because if someone has taken the time to come in and see you, they already know something needs to change. They're not there to be sold, they're there to get clarity. It's much closer to how a GP works. Somebody comes in, you figure out what's going on, and you recommend what happens next. And that's your role in the consultation. You're not there to sell, you're there to diagnose what's going on and guide them to what happens next. The first part of this is understanding what's actually going on. And this is where most trainers rush. They go straight into explaining what they do. But the problem is, if you don't fully understand the situation first, you're guessing. And when you're guessing, it shows. So instead, you want to slow this right down. You focus on the person right in front of you. What have they tried before? What worked? What hasn't? Where are they actually stuck? Because once you understand that properly, everything else becomes much easier. And more importantly, they feel understood. And when somebody feels understood, they trust you. Once you understand where they are, the next step is helping them see the gap. And this is where most trainers stay too general. What you're really doing here is helping them see the difference between where they are now and where they actually want to be. And then what's missing in between. And this is what it looks like in practice. You get someone who says, I just want to lose a bit of weight. The first thing I'll do is slow that down. What does that actually mean for you? How much are you thinking? What would you be happy with? Because most of the time it's still vague. And until it's clear, you can't really move forward. Then once you've got something more specific, that's when you show them the gap. So I might say, okay, so if that's the goal, what have you tried so far? And then you start to see the pattern. They've usually been trying this for years. They've started things, stopped, lost a bit, put it back on. So at that point, I'll say, look, if I'm honest, it's probably not weight loss that's the issue because you've tried that before. What I tend to see is people start with good intentions, but there's no real structure to it. So life gets in the way, things slip, and then there's nothing there to keep it on track. And there's no one guiding you through it. That's usually the bit that hasn't been solved yet. And when you say it like that, they usually just nod. Because now they can actually see what's been missing. And that is when things click. And then the final part of this is giving them a clear next step. And this is where a lot of trainers struggle. Because most trainers I know have some kind of sales script they're trying to follow. I used to do the same. You get to the end of the consultation knowing that this is the point where you're meant to close. And if I'm honest, that's the part I used to dread. Because you're expecting objections. You know, the type, I'll think about it, I need to speak to my partner. And then you're trying to handle that instead of just helping the person in front of you. But what I found was when everything before that is done properly, that mostly disappears because they're already clear. They can see what's missing and they understand what has to happen next. So instead of trying to close, as I say, you're just guiding the next step. So I'll normally say something like, based on everything we've talked through, this is what I recommend we do next. How does that sound? Are you ready to get started? And that's it. No pressure, no push, just a clear next step. And most of the time they're ready to move forward. So when you zoom out and look at it, this is how it actually all fits together. Your content builds a trust. Your lead magnet gives people a clear next step. Your email keeps that connection going, and then your consultation turns that into a client. That's it. The consultation isn't doing all of the work. It's just the final step in the process. And that's the part most people overcomplicate. Now, let's take a look at your own consultations. What actually happens when you sit down with a prospect? Not what you think happens, what actually happens. Do you slow things down and really understand them? Do you help them get clear on what they actually want? And then, do you help them see what's been missing? What stopped them from achieving their goals in the past? Because that's the bit that changes everything. Or do you move on too quickly? You have a good conversation, but no real clarity and no clear reason for them to move forward. So they leave and, as I say, nothing happens. And that's where most trainers lose people. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, That's exactly what my consultations feel like. Then the next step is simple. You need to see where this is breaking in your business. And that's exactly what the Growth Engine scorecard does. It shows you where people are dropping off, what's missing, and what you need to fix first. Takes a couple minutes and you'll know exactly where to focus. And you'll find the link below. Now, for most trainers, this is where things break. You have a good consultation, they say something like, yeah, this sounds good. I'll get started next week. And you think, great, they're going to sign up. But nothing gets locked in. There's no clear next step, no follow-up, and you never hear from them again. Or someone sends an inquiry, you reply once, and then it goes nowhere. And the problem isn't the lead, it's what happens after. So in the next video, I'll show you exactly what that needs to look like, what to send, when to send it, and how to make sure that when somebody shows interest, they actually become a client.